Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. You ever found yourself standing at the edge of an opportunity only to be pulled back by your own thoughts? It's not the world outside, not your boss, not your family, but that voice in your head saying, "You can't do this. You're not good enough." Isn't it time to silence that voice? Let me tell you something powerful today. Your mind can either be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. The choice is yours. The problem with negative thinking is infiltrates every aspect of your life, slowly eroding your confidence, aspirations, and even your potential for success without you even realizing the extent of its damage until it's too late. It's a mental loop that starts small, a casual note like, "I'm not good at this," or "What if I fail?" But if left unchecked, it multiplies and grows stronger, transforming a transshakable belief system that dictates your actions, or worse, your inaction. Negative thinking doesn't just affect your immediate mindset, it creates a ripple effect that influences your behavior, decisions, and ultimately, your reality. Think why sometimes. Think about how often you've let self-doubt talk you out of taking a chance or pursuing an opportunity that could have changed your life. Maybe it was a job you didn't apply for because you weren't qualified, a business idea you didn't act on because you feared failure, or even a meaningful conversation you avoided because you convinced yourself you wouldn't be heard. Negative thinking is like a thief that sneaks in your mind and steals your courage, your drive, and your clarity, replacing them with fear, procrastination, and regret. It whispers lies that sound like truths, convincing you that you're not talented enough, smart enough, or deserving enough to achieve the things you want in life. Worse, it starts to manifest in your actions, or lack thereof, because your mind is a powerful tool that shapes your reality. When you feed it negativity, it begins to look for evidence to support us, to creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that traps you in a cycle of mediocrity. For instance, if you tell yourself, "I'm not good at public speaking," your brain starts focusing on every mistake you make, magnifying them until they're all you can see, while simultaneously ignoring any moments of success. This bias not only cements the negative belief, but also makes you less likely to practice or improve, keeping you stuck exactly where you are. And it's not just your professional life that suffers. Negative thinking bleeds into your relationships, making you overly critical of others or too insecure to open up, leading to distance and disconnection. It affects your health, as stress and anxiety stemming from a negative mindset take a toll on your physical body, weakening your immune system and increasing your risk of chronic conditions. Financially, it can keep you in a scarcity mindset, where fear of loss prevents you from taking calculated risks necessary to grow. Spiritually, it disconnects you from hope and gratitude, leaving you feeling unfulfilled and disconnected sense of purpose. Over time, the cumulative effect of negative thinking is devastating, as it turns potential into regret, creativity into stagnation, and opportunity into missed chances. It's not just the big decisions that negative thinking sabotages, it's the little daily choices. Whether to speak up in a meeting, push through a tough workout, or even simply start your day with intention, they gently determine the trajectory of your life. The worst part, negative thinking often masquerades as caution or realism, making it harder to recognize and even harder to challenge. It tells you that playing it safe is the smart to do, that dreaming big is impractical, and that taking risks is reckless, all while slowly building walls around you that limit your growth. And let's not forget about the company it keeps. Negative thinking thrives in environments filled with negativity, whether it's toxic relationships, endless doom scrolling on social media, or who your shoes with people who validate your fears instead of challenging them. The more you entertain these influences, the deeper the negative grooves in your mind become, making it increasingly difficult to break free. Ultimately, the greatest tragedy of negative thinking is that it blinds you to your own potential, convincing you to settle for less than you're capable of achieving and robbing you of the life you truly deserve. It's a silent killer of dreams, And unless you actively work to recognize, change and replace it, it will continue to hold you back, leaving you wondering what could have been if you'd believed in yourself just a little more. The cost of negative thinking is far greater than people realize. It doesn't just impact the immediate situation or a fleeting moment. It has a compounding effect that ripples through the area of life, limiting what you achieve, how you feel, and who you become. It begins with a single seed. A thought like, "I'll never be good at this," or "This always does to me," which takes root and grows into a belief system that shapes your actions and decisions, often without you being fully aware of its influence. The real cost lies in the opportunities that negative thinking silently steals from you. The promotions you don't pursue because you assume you're not qualified. The relationships you don't build because you fear rejection. The risks you don't take because you're paralyzed by the thought of failure. Each of these moments compounds over time, creating a life filled with what-ifs and if-onlys, leaving you in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. Negative thinking also erodes your ability to grow and improve because it limits your willingness to try new things, step outside your comfort zone, or push through challenges. When you tell your thing is impossible or convince yourself that you're not capable, you're not just avoiding failure, you're avoiding success. This mindset creates a seed or prophecy where your inaction and lack of effort reinforce your original doubts, further entrenching the belief that you're not good enough, smart enough, or deserving enough. Beyond missed opportunities, negative thinking takes a significant toll on your mental and physical health. It fuels stress, anxiety, and depression by creating a constant loop of worry and pessimism that drains your energy and focus. Your mind becomes a battlefield, constantly at war with itself. As you replay mistakes, imagine worst-case scenario and second-guess every decision. This mental strain doesn't just stay in your head. It manifests in your body, weakening your immune system, disrupting your sleep, and increasing your risk of chronic illnesses like heart disease and high blood pressure. Over time, this wear and tear on your mind reduces your overall quality of life, making it harder to find joy, motivation, or peace of mind. Financially, negative thinking can be just as destructive. In a scarcity mindset where you're too afraid to invest in yourself, your goals, or opportunities that could lead to greater abundance. You might find yourself hoarding resources, losing them, or avoiding risks that could bring significant rewards. All because your mind is focused on what could go wrong instead of what could go right. This mindset not only limits your earning potential, but also your ability to enjoy what you have, as you're constantly worried about losing it. Relationships also suffer under the weight of negative thinking, as it breeds mistrust, insecurity, and conflict. When you assume the worst about people, or sometimes you project those fears onto others, creating a barrier that prevents genuine connection. You may find yourself withdrawing from loving their intentions or becoming overly critical, all of which erode trust and intimacy. Over time, these patterns can leave you feeling isolated and lonely, even when you're surrounded by people who care about you. On a deeper level, negative thinking disconnects you from your sense of purpose and fulfillment. It blinds you to the possibilities around you, making it difficult to see the beauty in life or appreciate the progress you've made. Instead of focusing on what you have, you're consumed by what you lack, which creates a perpetual sense of inadequacy and dissatisfaction. This mindset not only robs you of happiness in the present, but also dims your vision for the future, making it harder to set goals, dream big, or believe that better days are ahead. Perhaps the most tragic cost of negative thinking is the way it stifles your potential. Every time you let fear, doubt, or pessimism dictate your choices, you're choosing to stay small and safe instead of stepping into the fullness of who you could be. Sometimes you're settling for a version of yourself that is than what you're capable of, all because you've convinced yourself that striving for more isn't worth the risk. Over time, this pattern of settling becomes a habit, and that habit becomes your reality. The dreams you once had fade into the background, replaced by excuses, regrets, and a lingering sense of what might have been. The cost of negative thinking is not just measured in what you lose today, but in the life you never get to live because you allowed fear and doubt to call the shots. It's the silent killer of ambition, creativity, and resilience, and if left unchecked, it will rob you of everything you're meant to achieve, experience, and become. The good news is that this cost is avoidable, but only if you're willing to confront your negative thoughts, challenge their validity, and replace them with empowering beliefs that fuel action, growth, and progress. The price of negative thinking is far too high to pay, and the sooner you recognize its impact, the sooner you can start reclaiming your power and building the life you truly deserve. Recognizing the enemy is the critical first step in dismantling the destructive power of negative thinking, and the reason it's so challenging is because this enemy doesn't wear a visible uniform or announce its presence with fanfare. It hides in plain sight, disguised as logic, realism, or even caution, making it hard to detect and even harder to confront. Negative thinking often starts with subtle whispers in your mind, thoughts that feel harmless or even protective at first. It might sound like, "What if I fail?" or "I'm not ready for this." And because these thoughts seem reasonable, they slip past your mental defenses and begin to take root. The danger is that once they're planted, they grow rapidly, feeding off your fears and doubts until they dominate your inner dialogue, shaping how you see yourself and the world around you. Recognizing this enemy means becoming deeply aware of your internal narrative and learning to identify the patterns and triggers that give rise to negative thoughts. For example, do you notice these thoughts creeping in when you're about to take a risk or step out of your comfort zone? Are they louder when you're facing criticism, rejection, or failure? These are the moments when the enemy thrives, preying on your vulnerabilities and using them to keep you stuck. Recognizing the enemy is the critical first step in dismantling the destructive power of negative thinking. And the reason it's so challenging is because this enemy doesn't wear a visible uniform or announce its presence with fanfare. It hides in plain sight, disguised as logic, realism, or even caution, making it hard to detect and even harder to confront. Negative thinking often starts with subtle whispers in your mind, thoughts that feel harmless or even protective at first. It might sound like, "What if I fail?" or "I'm not ready for this." And because these thoughts seem reasonable, they slip past your mental defenses and begin to take root. The danger is that once they're planted, they grow rapidly, feeding off your fears and doubts until they dominate your inner dialogue, shaping how you see yourself and the world around you. Recognizing this enemy means becoming deeply aware of your internal narrative and learning to identify the patterns and triggers that give rise to negative thoughts. For example, do you notice these thoughts creeping in when you're about to take a risk or step out of your comfort zone? Are they louder when you're facing criticism, rejection, or failure? These are the moments when the enemy thrives, preying on your vulnerabilities and using them to keep you stuck. It's important to understand that negative thinking isn't just a random occurrence. It's often rooted in past experiences, societal conditioning, or deeply ingrained beliefs that have been reinforced over time. Maybe you grew up in an environment where failure was punished or ridiculed, leaving you with an enduring fear of making mistakes. Maybe you've internalized societal pressures that equate your worth with your achievements, leading you to doubt yourself whenever you fall short. Whatever the source, these thought patterns become so habitual that they feel like an intrinsic part of who you are, making it even harder to separate yourself from them. Recognizing the enemy also involves understanding the forms it takes, as negative thinking doesn't always appear as blatant self-doubt. Sometimes it masquerades as perfectionism, convincing you that nothing you do is ever good enough, which leads to procrastination and burnout. Other times, it shows up as comparison, causing you to fixate on how much better others seem to be doing and leaving you feeling inadequate and defeated. Then there's the voice of cynicism. sometimes, which tells you that trying is pointless because the odds are stacked against you, or that people's intentions are always self-serving. Each of these manifestations has a weighing your efforts, draining your energy, and keeping you in a cycle of self-limiting behavior. To effectively recognize the enemy, you have to become a keen observer of your own mind, treating your thoughts not as absolute truths but as hypotheses to be examined. Start by paying attention to the language of your inner dialogue. Are your thoughts laced with absolutes like never? Do they catastrophize situations, imagining the worst possible outcomes? For instance, if you make a mistake at work, does your mind immediately jump to conclusions like, "I'm going to get fired," or "everyone must think I'm incompetent"? These are clear signs that negative thinking has taken hold, and the first step to breaking free is acknowledging its presence. Another powerful way to recognize the enemy is to know how our thoughts affect your emotions and behavior. Negative thinking often leaves you feeling anxious, overwhelmed, or stuck, and it's accompanied by actions that reflect these emotions. You might avoid taking action on a goal because you're afraid of failing, or you might overanalyze every detail of a decision because you fear making the wrong choice. These behaviors are not random. They are direct consequences of the mental scripts running in your head. Once you're aware of this cause and effect relationship, you can begin to interrupt the cycle. It's also crucial to recognize the external forces that amplify negative thinking. Social media, for instance, it can be a breeding ground for comparison and self, as you're constantly bombarded with curated highlights of other people's lives. Toxic relationships or environments where negative norm can further reinforce these thought patterns, making it even harder to break free. Recognizing the enemy means not only looking but also examining the influences around you and making conscious choices about what you allow into your mental space. At its core, recognizing the enemy is about awareness. Awareness of the thoughts that cross your mind, the stories you tell yourself, and the impact these have on your life. It's about the negative thought as soon as it arises, before it has a chance to spiral out of control, and questioning its validity. Ask yourself, is it based on facts, or is it just my fear talking? What evidence do I have to support or refute this? By approaching your thoughts with curiosity rather than judgment, you create space to challenge and reframe them. This process takes time and practice, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes to separate yourself from your negative thoughts and see them for what they are. Just thoughts, not facts. Ultimately, recognizing the enemy is an act of reclaiming your power. It's about taking responsibility for your refusing to let negative thinking dictate your actions or define your potential. The enemy may be subtle, persistent, and cunning, but once you've learned to spot it, you're no longer at its mercy. You have the ability to choose a different narrative, one that empowers you rather than limits you. And that is the first step toward creating the life you want and deserve. Replacing the narrative is the cornerstone of transforming your mindset, and it begins with understanding that the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of is not set in stone. For most people, the default narrative is riddled with limitations, doubt, and self-criticism built over years of internalized messages from experiences, environments, and even societal expectations. These narratives often run on autopilot, dictating how you see the world and your place within it. For instance, you might think, "I'm just not good with money," or "I'll never be a leader," without ever questioning where these beliefs came from or whether they're even true. The key to replacing this narrative is first recognizing that it's just that, a narrative, not an absolute truth. Once you understand that your thoughts are merely interpretations rather than facts, you create the space to rewrite them in a way that aligns with the person you want to become. The process of replacing the narrative starts with paying attention to the language of your inner dialogue. Negative narratives often contain absolutes like always and never, which leave no room for nuance or growth. For example, "I always mess up," or "things never work out for me" are statements that box you in and reinforce a fixed mindset. Replacing these absolutes with empowering language is the first step in reclaiming your mental freedom. Instead of saying, "I always fail at this," you might say, "I haven't succeeded yet, but I'm learning and improving." This subtle shift in language opens up possibilities and reminds you that growth is a process, not an overnight event. Another critical step in replacing the narrative is identifying the evidence that supports or contradicts your current beliefs. Negative narratives often thrive because they go unchallenged, but when you actively seek out proof, you'll often find that your beliefs are based on assumptions rather than facts. For example, if you believe you're bad at public speaking, take a closer look at your experiences. Maybe you stumbled once or twice, but were there also moments when you spoke clearly and confidently? By focusing on those moments of success, no matter how small, you begin to build a new narrative that says, "I've had challenges with public speaking, but I've also had wins, and I can build on those." Replacing the narrative also requires a proactive approach to feeding your mind with positive and empowering stories. Surround yourself with books, podcasts, and people that inspire you and challenge your limiting beliefs. When you expose yourself to examples of others who have overcome similar challenges, you start to see what's possible for you as well. This process of reprogramming your mind isn't about blind positivity or ignoring reality. It's about deliberately choosing to focus on what empowers you rather than what holds you back. Visualization is another powerful tool in replacing the narrative. Your brain doesn't always distinguish between real experiences and vividly imagined ones, which means you can use visualization to practice new, empowering beliefs. If your current narrative says, "I'm not confident in social situations," spend a few minutes each day visualizing yourself walking into a room with confidence, making eye contact, and engaging in meaningful conversations. The more you repeat this exercise, the more your brain begins to accept this new narrative as truth, making it easier to act in alignment with it when the time comes. Affirmations can also play a role in replacing the narrative, but they must be used effectively to be truly impactful. Simply repeating, "I am successful" or "I am confident" won't work if deep down you don't believe it. Instead, frame your affirmations in a way that feels authentic and believable, such as, "I am becoming more confident every day," or "I am taking steps towards success." These incremental statements acknowledge where you are while keeping your focus on growth and progress. One of the most transformative aspects of replacing the narrative is the shift from a victim mindset to a creator mindset. A victim mindset says, "This is happening to me," while a creator mindset says, "This is happening for me." For example, if you've faced setbacks in your career, a victim narrative might sound like, "I'll never get ahead because the system is rigged against me." A creator narrative, on the other hand, might say, "This setback is teaching me resilience and helping me refine my skills for the next opportunity." This shift in perspective allows you to take ownership of your story and see challenges as stepping stones rather than obstacles. It's also important to acknowledge that replacing the narrative is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. Negative thoughts and old beliefs will stem time to time, especially when you're under stress or facing uncertainty. The key is to catch them early and consciously redirect your focus. This might involve journaling about your thoughts and feelings, talking to a mentor or coach, or simply taking a few deep breaths and remedy your new narrative. Over time, these practices become second nature, and the negative narratives lose their grip on you. Accountability can also be a powerful tool in this process. Share your new narrative with someone you trust, whether it's a friend, family member, or coach, and ask them to hold you accountable. When they hear you slipping back into old patterns of thinking, they can gently remind you of the story you're working to create. This external support can be incredibly valuable, especially in moments when you're struggling to maintain your new mindset on your own. Ultimately, replacing the narrative is about reclaiming your identity and stepping into your power. It's about recognizing that you are not defined by your past, your mistakes, or the labels others have placed you. You are defined by the choices you make today and the story you choose to tell about yourself moving forward. The process may not be easy, but it's worth it, because when you change the narrative, you change your life. Every new belief you adopt, every empowering thought you repeat, every you take in alignment with your new narrative brings you closer to the person you're meant to be. The old story may have been written by fear or circumstances beyond your control, but the new story is yours to create, and it's a story of possibility, resilience, and growth. Taking action immediately is the key to break free from the cycle of overthinking, procrastination, and self-doubt, and it's often the most overlooked yet transformative step in creating real change in your life. The reason immediate action is so powerful is that it interrupts the endless loop of negative thoughts and excuses that keep you stuck, forcing you to engage directly with the world and building momentum. The truth is, no amount of planning, visualizing, or waiting for the right time can substitute for the clarity and confidence that come from actually doing something, even if it's a small, imperfect step. Action has a way of cutting through fear because it shifts your focus from what could go wrong to what you can accomplish in the moment. Why sometimes, when you take action, you're sending a powerful message to yourself that you are capable, resourceful, and willing to move forward, even in the face of uncertainty. It's easy to fall into the trap of waiting for perfect conditions or feeling like you need to have every detail figured out before you begin. But this mindset only leads to parallel opportunities. The reality is that perfect conditions rarely exist, and the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to overcome the inertia of an action. Immediate action doesn't mean diving in recklessly or without thought. It means taking a deliberate, focused step toward your goal, no matter how small it may seem. For example, if you've been putting off starting a fitness routine, immediate action could mean putting on your workout clothes and taking a brisk walk around the block. If you've been procrastinating on a work project, it could mean sitting down for 5 linear first steps. These small actions might not seem significant on their own, but they create a ripple effect that builds momentum and makes it easier to tackle bigger challenges. One of the most important aspects of taking immediately is overcoming the fear of failure, which often holds people back more than any external obstacle. Fear of failure can paralyze you, convincing you that it's better to do nothing than to risk making a mistake or falling short. But here's the truth thing. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's a necessary part of the process. Every successful person has faced setbacks, made mistakes, and experienced moments of doubt, but what sets apart is their willingness to act anyway. By taking action, you're giving yourself permission to learn and grow, rather than waiting for perfection that will never come. Another common barrier to immediate action is the tendency to overthink or overanalyze, which can lead to a state of analysis paralysis. You might find yourself endlessly researching, planning, or debating your options, but never actually moving forward. While it's important to be informed and prepared, there comes a point where additional thinking becomes counterproductive. In these moments, remind yourself that action creates clarity. The first step might not be perfect, and that's okay, because every step you take provides valuable feedback that helps you adjust and improve. Instead of waiting to feel ready, commit to taking action now, knowing that readiness often comes after you've begun. A key strategy for taking action immediately is breaking your goal into smaller, manageable steps that feel less overwhelming. Large goals can feel intimidating and lead to procrastination because they seem too big to tackle all at once. By focusing on one small step at a time, you make progress feel achievable and build confidence along the way. For instance, if your goal is to write a book, don't start by trying to write an entire chapter. Instead, commit to writing 100 words today or brainstorming a list of ideas. Each small step moves you closer to your goal and reinforces the habit of taking action. One of the most underestimated benefits of immediate action is the way it transforms your mindset. When you take action, you're no longer a passive observer of your life. You become an active participant who is shaping your reality. This shift in perspective is incredibly empowering because it reminds you that you have control over your choices and your future. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the challenges and uncertainties of life, but taking action helps you focus on what you can control, no matter how small that may be. This sense of agency builds resilience and keeps you moving forward, even in difficult times. Accountability can also play a significant role in encouraging immediate action. When you share your goals with someone you trust, commit to a deadline, you create external pressure that motivates you to follow through. For example, if you tell a friend that you'll meet them at gym tomorrow, you're more likely to show up than if you keep your intentions to yourself. Similarly, setting a specific deadline for a task, even if it's self-imposed, creates a sense of urgency that makes it harder to procrastinate. Another powerful motivator for immediate action is connecting with your why, the deeper reason behind your goal. When you're clear on why a goal matters to you, it becomes easier to push through fear, doubt, or resistance. Take a moment to reflect on what's at stake. If you don't take action, will you miss out on an opportunity to grow, achieve, or contribute? Will you feel regret or disappointment down the line? On the flip side, think about the benefits and rewards of taking action. How will it feel to make progress, overcome challenges, and move closer to your vision? Keeping these motivations in mind can help you stay focused and inspired to act. It's also important to celebrate the small wins that come from taking action, no matter how minor they may seem. Each step forward is a victory, and acknowledging your progress reinforces the habit of action and builds momentum. For example, if your goal is to get healthier, celebrate the fact that you chose a salad over fishes or completed your first workout. These small victories might not seem like much, but they add up over time and create a positive feedback loop that encourages you to keep going. Taking action immediately is not just about or results. It's about becoming the kind of person who takes initiative and follows through. It's about building the discipline, courage, and resilience needed to face life's challenges and pursue your dreams. The more you practice taking action, the more it becomes a natural part of who you are, and the less power fear and doubt have over you. Ultimately, the decision to take action is yours, and it's a choice you can make at any moment. You'd have to wait for permission, approval, or perfect conditions. You simply have to decide that your goals and dreams are worth the effort, and then take the first step, no matter how small. Remember, progress is made one action at a time, and the sooner you start, the sooner you'll see results. So, what's one thing you can do right now to move closer to your goal? Whatever it is, do it. Don't wait, don't overthink, and don't let fear hold you back. Take action immediately, and watch how your life begins to change.